About 10 years ago, I made a promise to myself that I was going to heal from anxiety. Not just cope with it, not medicate it or treat it, but actually heal from it and not have it anymore. And then I went on a journey that was messier than I could have ever imagined. But recently, it's like all of the pieces have come together and a light bulb has come on, and I've figured something out that has been a game changer for me. It has allowed me to feel good for the first time in a long time. And when I say feel good, I mean like no anxiety at all. And it's been incredible. And that's what I want to talk about today. So let me start by talking about my experience with anxiety. I have had anxiety and depression for most of my life. When I was young, I think it was more situational. Always had social anxiety since I can remember, but it wasn't like it was consuming my life all the time. In my teenage years, I think the depression was more intense. Social anxiety was higher. So I was interacting with people more at school and stuff, but the depression was pretty intense. But I didn't really have like generalized or chronic anxiety until my early 20s. And in my early 20s, that's when I had my first panic attack. I still remember it. I was at my grandma's house and I was washing dishes and panic just set over me. And I had never really experienced anything like that. Anyone who's experienced anxiety or panic knows how intense those sensations can be and how overwhelming it can be. And the first time is like, you don't know what's going on. I thought I had just gone crazy, like that something in my brain had snapped and I had become a crazy person, and I didn't know what to do with that. So I just went outside and just started walking around the neighborhood because I didn't know what else to do. I had to kind of escape that moment. And then for the next several years, I just started having panic attacks regularly. There were some breaks in between. When I look back now, when I was connecting more with people, I could kind of pull out of it. It depends on how it was happening, because the social anxiety was there. But there were times where I would make a connection with somebody, and the way that they treated me, the kindness or the welcoming, it could help pull me out of that social anxiety. I'm actually pretty good at connecting deeply with people when I can get out of my head about it. So there were some like periods of time where I was not having major anxiety, which was nice, but then friendships kind of drift and whatever, circumstances change. And so I would say for that like 10 years nearly, I was just like experiencing so much panic. Every day I would experience panic attacks, and I didn't know how to deal with it. This was at a time before we were all talking about it. This was in like, would have been early 2000s, 2010s, time. So like the term was out there. Some people knew about it, knew what it was, but it wasn't talked about like it is now. And I didn't know really what it was. And I didn't understand what was going on. Just thought I was crazy. It was overwhelming and exhausting. I the first time I kind of had some relief was like my aunt gave me I think I talked to my cousin about it, and he suggested anxiety, and my aunt had like a it was like a 40 CD program for like curing anxiety or whatever. I can't remember what it was, all about, but she lent it to me, and I didn't, make it all the way through it. But when I first heard the lady talking about it, about what was going on, that gave me a lot of relief, because the thing she was describing, the way I felt, she was describing how I felt. And she was talking about it with such casualness, like, hey, this is no big deal. And that was surprising to me and freeing, because then maybe if other people knew what I was feeling and dealing with, they wouldn't think I was crazy. And maybe I wasn't crazy. And so that was really kind of shifted my perspective at first, because then I knew what it was, and it made a little more sense. But I still didn't really understand what was causing it, or what really was going on in my body. But at least it had a name, and other people experienced it, and so it gave me a little bit of relief. But I was still experiencing the panic attacks so much, and it was so exhausting. Just battling with my mind every day and just trying to survive and get through the day. And then I remember one night I was I couldn't really handle it anymore. It was like it was too much for me. I was completely overwhelmed. I was very depressed because I felt powerless. I felt hopeless, and I didn't know what to do. But I knew that there was like a scripture study class that night, and I decided I would go, almost like out of desperation. I didn't know what else to do. And so I went there, and I sat at the back, and I just tried to survive that night. And I wasn't really feeling anything. The teacher was teaching us from the Book of Mormon, and I was trying to pay attention, but I was just so overwhelmed and exhausted from the long day of panic. When suddenly the Holy Spirit came into my heart and my mind, and I knew that God was aware of me. And that He cared about me. And that I wasn't suffering alone. And He made me a promise that night that if I would commit to Him, I would commit to studying my scriptures every day for at least a half an hour, which at the time for me was a stretch. He promised that He would heal me of the anxiety. And that gave me so much hope and peace, and helped me move forward. Now, what did I expect to happen at this point? I guess I thought that I would wake up the next day and I would just feel amazing, and I wouldn't feel anxious anymore, and I wouldn't have panic attacks anymore. And that's not what happened. I was more hopeful at this point, at least for, the next few days. But I started still experiencing the anxiety. And I wasn't really feeling good still. I wasn't feeling at peace like I wanted to. I wasn't feeling hopeful like I wanted to. And I was still feeling anxious. So after a little while, I felt like maybe this is a journey that God wants to lead me down, and I need to engage with Him in the process, and that there are things that I need to change and do differently to help receive the healing that I was promised and that I was looking for. So I started researching. I started searching for anything that I could find about what anxiety was and what caused it and how to heal it. I've always believed that health is not an accident, that good health doesn't happen by accident, and that poor health doesn't happen by accident either. I always believed that there was a root cause for our health issues. And if I could find the root cause of anxiety, then I could heal it. So the first thing that I found and really put myself into was the gut-brain connection. It was the idea that there's a connection between the digestive system and the brain. There's tons of neurons in the digestive system. There's also like a huge percentage of the like neurotransmitters and feel-good chemicals are produced in the gut, like serotonin and dopamine. And so if you have an imbalance there, then it made sense to me that you would have some problems mentally or emotionally. So that's where I started. And I went all in on this. I was 100% committed. I ate nothing but organic, whole, plant-based foods. I cut out everything that was processed. I didn't go to a restaurant for years. I ate only what I made at home myself. Or if I went somewhere, I was traveling somewhere, I would take my own food. I was extremely strict, and I didn't even bend the rules for myself at all. And what I expected to happen, or what I wanted to happen, was that I would start feeling a lot of energy, and emotionally the anxiety would lift and I would feel good. I mean, that was what I guess hoped for, expected, and that's not what happened. I would say, like, I have no regrets about changing my diet. I think we should all eat healthy, and I definitely needed to make those changes, but it didn't bring the results that I was hoping for. And this was very painful. This was very discouraging, especially for somebody who is prone to anxiety or depression. Like when something goes wrong, and especially in this case, I had put so much into it. I was so committed to it. I had made such a huge change, and I still felt terrible. I still couldn't stop the anxiety and the stress. And so it was depressing. And that was a pattern that showed up consistently. I would find something that I thought was going to help, that someone online had promised it helped them, and I mean, the research looked good. The ideas were strong. It made sense to me. And so I would try it with some hope, and it wouldn't produce the results I wanted. And I would get discouraged and I would get depressed, and I would have to take a lot of breaks. There were times I went months without really working on anything because I just didn't have the energy, or I was very depressed or discouraged. And so this was a long process. The next piece of the puzzle that I knew about this one from early on, but I really put a lot of energy into it I think about this point. This was meditation, or like kind of the mental aspect of it. So there was meditation, positive thinking, positive affirmations, visualization. And the thing with like the mental side of it, it's really powerful. Like our thoughts are incredibly powerful. They can change everything for us. And so I put a lot into this. I practiced meditation daily, sometimes for hours. And I remember I created an audio recording of myself doing positive affirmations. I am worthy of love and acceptance. I completely accept myself. I'm enough. Just a bunch of positive affirmations. I said them for like 10 minutes, and then I took that and I looped it and put some really calming music underneath the track, and I looped that for like 8 hours, and then I would take that and I would listen to it all day at work. Just positive affirmation over and over. My idea was like, I'm going to reprogram my subconscious mind to believe these positive things about myself, and then I won't have anxiety anymore, right? I won't have depression anymore because I'll believe positive things, and I'll just feel good all the time. And the thing is, like, it can be powerful. It can work. There were times where it like made me feel amazing. I would do visualization, and I, visualize myself really happy, successful, confident, and it would actually like click, and I could feel good. I mean, I could feel really good for a short time, and then it would start to slip away. The anxiety would start to slip back in, and the depression coming on, and I would just fight like tooth and nail, just desperately trying to hold on to those good feelings, trying to keep feeling good, trying to keep the anxiety away, trying to keep visualizing, saying the positive affirmations, meditating. The meditation was like, I didn't understand how to do it at this point. I just was trying to stop thinking. Just don't let thoughts in my mind, just, push them out. Don't think of anything. That is impossible. If you're trying to stop yourself from thinking, like you're trying to like fight it, trying to resist it, trying to clear your mind. Don't think of anything. You put a lot of pressure on yourself, put a lot of stress on yourself, and it becomes counterproductive, like really quickly. And that's what it was like for me. So I kind of would put meditation and the mental side of it on the side for a long time. And so that one, because that was really draining. It was exhausting. I'm trying to constantly fix my mind and fight with the anxiety. It was too much. Another thing I discovered was like cold exposure and breathing practices, breathing techniques. There's a guy named Wim Hof. He's an interesting guy, and he holds all these records for cold exposure. He says that he healed himself from anxiety and depression using cold exposure and deep breathing methods. And so I tried his approach. Like I did cold exposure. I would go up to the mountain and I would get in a river and just sit in the river like just as long as I could. And I hate the cold. I hate it so much. I get cold easy. I don't like it. And I didn't like the actual during that process, but afterward it feels really nice. It's energizing, and there are a lot of health benefits to cold exposure, but I didn't enjoy it. And ultimately it wasn't really improving my anxiety. It was like there was some physical energizing, like I could feel a little bit more energy in my body, but I was still feeling anxious. And the other part of it was the deep breathing, and this I actually still use today. This is a really powerful technique. It's really interesting. The way he does it, like you're basically hyperventilating, you're over saturating your body with oxygen. And then you do some long holds, and it can feel really euphoric. Like it can feel really good. For me, like definitely it can feel just really, really good. But again, for me, it doesn't last it lasts like 30 seconds, and it's kind of a challenge. It's a little tiring, just to keep doing the breathing. And so this was like interesting for me and had some nice benefits. But again, I was still anxious. I couldn't stop the anxiety. I could feel good temporarily for a short time. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But I was pretty much always still feeling the anxiety. And there were plenty of times where I would do the deep breathing and it just wouldn't. I was still anxious. I was maybe even more anxious while I was doing the deep breathing at times. Again, it was one of these things that I was so committed to getting better, to healing. And I put my whole heart into it and I committed to it and I tried it. And the results were disappointing, discouraging. And I would fall into depression a lot. And it was like hard to keep going. And that went on for like over 10 years. It was very painful. It was very exhausting. But occasionally I would rest for a while and then I would feel like I had a little bit of hope, a little bit of strength, and I could maybe try again. And it was recently, over the last year, that I discovered something that really shifted everything. It really changed my paradigm and helped me understand what anxiety is and what it's not and how to approach healing. And this shift has, I mean, it's been such a game changer. Like, I'll tell you, okay, it's not like I figured it out and then I healed from anxiety. I never had an anxiety again. Still, it's a work in progress. Okay. But I have had many times now in nighttime, daytimes, where I have had no anxiety at all. And like, you can't imagine, like if you've been experiencing anxiety for a long time and like, it's hard to imagine feeling good again, but you can. And it's incredible. Like, and it's weird because it's like not like anything special happened per se. It's like when you just don't feel anxious, how good you feel is amazing. When you can rest, when you're not overthinking and you're not worried about this or that or whatever it is, you sometimes don't even know. But when that anxiety subsides and lifts and you can relax, like there's beauty in every moment, joy in every moment. Like simple things like, the feel of the wind on your face, the feel of the sun on your face, the beauty of the trees and flowers, the sound of somebody's voice, the sound of the air conditioning running. Like you can enjoy that. Like you can find joy in it. It feels really good just listening to the air conditioner running. And you can feel grateful for it, and you can feel like just, I don't know, kind of alive and just joyful. And that's how I felt at times as I've started to understand what's going on with anxiety and how to heal it. And I continue to improve, and it's a process and it'll get better over time. But I'm just saying, I've had many times where now I've not had anxiety and I've felt good. And it's just beautiful. So here is the shift. Here's the paradigm change. Here's what I learned that has changed everything for me. Anxiety is not really a thinking problem. It is a body problem, meaning that the way to heal anxiety is not through thinking, it's not through your mind, it's through your body. And that changed everything, because that now I don't have to constantly try to think my way out of anxiety, think my way to healing. That is exhausting and practically impossible. What I can do is work through the body, through my body, to help heal anxiety. Okay, anxiety is not a thinking problem. It is not a chemical problem. It's a nervous system problem. The nervous system lives in your body, and you can directly impact the nervous system to help your body learn calm again. It knows how to be calm. It's built into your body. It's built into the system. It just has to remember how. Okay, so here's what's happening. Here's what causes anxiety, what's going on. Here's the problem. Okay, anxiety is just a natural, normal state of the body. You're supposed to have anxiety in the proper situations for the proper amount of time. We all have something called the nervous system, and this is the network of nerves in our body, and it does a lot of things, but one of the main things it does is it's going to control our overall state, the way we feel physically, physiologically, emotionally, and physically. And there are basically two states. Some people will say there's three, but it doesn't really matter. Like, we can just talk about the main two. So you've got, first of all, you have the parasympathetic nervous system state, and this is your rest and digest state. This is where you rest and digest. This is where you're calm and everything feels okay. And then you have the sympathetic nervous system state, and this is your anxiety state. This is the fight or flight response. This is where you have the symptoms of anxiety, racing heartbeat, and can't catch your breath, and tension in the body somewhere, the neck, jaw, the uneasiness in your stomach. This is what anxiety is. This is what it's supposed to feel like, and it's actually there for a good purpose and a good reason. If you are in an actually dangerous situation, your brain will get the information about your surroundings, say, this is dangerous, and it will trigger the sympathetic nervous system state, which is there to get you ready to either fight or run. It's meant to keep you alive. It's meant to just help you survive a dangerous situation. And that's fine. It can be helpful. If we're in a fire, the brain will say, let's get out of here. And so it will trigger this state, which is meant to override your thinking and override your reasoning, so that you can just act on instinct quickly without thinking and get out of danger. And that is fine. That's useful in the right circumstances. But when we develop an anxiety disorder, here's what happens. The anxious state, the anxiety state, the sympathetic nervous system is getting triggered when it doesn't need to be, and staying on longer than it needs to be. So what happens is we experience something painful, and our brain says, we do not want to experience that ever again. So it sets an anxiety trigger on anything that looks similar to that experience, so that it can keep you away from similar experiences, so that you don't experience the same thing again. Say when you were a child, you went swimming and you almost drowned. It was very scary. It was dangerous. It was a traumatic experience. And your brain says, we do not want to experience that again. We've got to stay away from that situation again. And it sets a trigger on the circumstance. But what happens is it overgeneralizes. Okay, so it says, well, what was going on there? We were at a swimming pool. Therefore, all swimming pools are bad. Don't ever go to a swimming pool again. You could die there. Or there was water there. Therefore, all water is bad. Don't ever go to anywhere where there's water, a swimming pool, a lake, anything like that. Don't ever do it because you could die. And so it sets a trigger anytime you get near water, or you know, someone says, hey, let's go, we're going to go boating, and you get anxious. You know, you get it, that triggers an anxiety response because your brain says all water is bad. All water is dangerous. Stay away. So that's when we start to get these trauma-based anxieties, and they can be really specific, you know, to a certain thing, but like then they can also become overly generalized. Say when you were a child, you were hurt, you were made fun of at school by some kids, right? So your brain said, well, that was really painful, and so we need to protect ourselves from that again. So therefore, don't talk to people anymore. If you don't talk to people, then that can't happen again. People are dangerous. So now you have social anxiety. Anytime you get around people, you know, you get anxious, you get panicked. And so this is what causes an anxiety disorder. It's this overgeneralization by your brain of circumstances that look similar to painful experiences. So it triggers this fight or flight response. Now it can get even worse. That generalization can kind of spread to other things that look kind of similar to this or that, or you can even become anxious about anxiety itself, which is what happened to me. The experience of having an anxiety attack or a panic attack is so painful and scary and overwhelming that your brain says, well, I don't ever want to experience that again. So let's be hyper vigilant about anxiety, meaning constantly check in with your body. Am I experiencing anxiety? Am I experiencing any anxiety? Is there any, I think I kind of have a little bit of anxiety. Oh no, there's some anxiety coming on again. Oh no, here it comes. But like it uses anxiety to cause you to check if you have anxiety, right? That's its trigger. That's its mechanism. Let me give him a little feeling of anxiety to remind him you need to check and see if you have anxiety. So it becomes a self-feeding cycle. Or you can, as soon as you start to feel good, like this is what happens to me a lot. As soon as I start to feel, want to let go of the anxiety and that worry and that doubt, then my brain says, uh-oh, when's it coming in again? When's the anxiety coming again? It's going to come. So it's constantly worried about it, which just brings on more anxiety. So then you don't have, so like even feeling calm makes you then feel more anxious and more stressed. That's what's happening with anxiety. It's just a natural state of the body being triggered when it doesn't need to and staying for longer than it needs to. And in my case, like you know, the neural pathway of anxiety is so well worn now that it's like, it's become my default state. So I've just always in anxiety, always in that stress, and it's exhausting. But the good news is now we understand what's causing anxiety, what it is and what causes it. So now the question becomes, well, how do we heal it? How do we fix the problem? When we have anxiety in our world today, what do people tell us to do? They say, well, go to the doctor, go to a therapist, and the doctor or therapist is going to prescribe some medication, most likely. And or you'll talk it all out with the therapist. These are the main avenues for treatment that we have, that we're taught about in the world today. And let me say, I want to be careful here because I do not blame anybody for going this route. And also, I think talking about our issues with somebody can be really helpful. Definitely. I've gone to therapy myself too, you know, so there's no shame in that. There's no shame in going the medication route either. That's what we're taught. That's what we're told to do. The reason that I didn't go medication route is because I understand what medication is. There are always side effects because it's not a naturally occurring substance. It's been altered from its natural state. And so our physiology doesn't really understand it very well. So there are always side effects. And a lot of people who've gone on anxiety medication or antidepressants who have really struggled with them, with the side effects. Again, no shame if that's where you're at. That's okay. I get it. But I just want to shift the perspective and look at it from a root cause perspective. Instead of treating symptoms, the medication is treating symptoms. It's trying to rebalance chemicals or stop you from producing certain chemicals. Instead of looking at why is the body producing those chemicals in the first place, or causing you to produce some other chemicals, and instead of asking why isn't it producing the chemicals it's supposed to be. And with therapy and talking things out, again, I think it can be so helpful. It can also be it can kind of keep us a little bit stuck. We're constantly hashing out our traumas and all the painful things that have happened to us, which again can be so good. It can be cathartic. It can be a beautiful experience to have somebody support you as you talk through and work out some of your issues. But it can also keep us a little bit stuck sometimes. Again, I'm trying to be careful. I don't want to shame anyone for any of this. Don't feel pressured or ashamed or whatever if that's the route you've gone or you're where you're at right now. Let's consider a different approach, a different understanding. Now we know what anxiety is. Let's consider a different approach to healing, one that's holistic, that addresses things through the body, in a language the body understands, in a natural way. You get a holistic approach, a holistic perspective on what's going on. So here's what's cool. We can communicate directly with the nervous system. In the nervous system, there's a nerve called the vagus nerve. This nerve runs all throughout your body, comes up to your brain. It's constantly sending information to the brain about your circumstances, if you're safe or not. What is your heart rate like? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? Everything, all the information going up to your brain, so your brain can assess, am I in danger or not? And then it can trigger, the nervous system state. Well, we can communicate directly with the vagus nerve. We can send it calming signals to tell the brain we're safe. We're safe. We can be in a parasympathetic nervous system state. We can relax. We can be calm. Everything's safe. We can send signals to the brain through the vagus nerve in some really specific ways. And I'll go into a lot more detail about the techniques that I use in other episodes, but for now, just a few of them. We can use deep breathing, slow, deep breathing. The vagus nerve is stimulated through sound. We can hum. We can use something like a singing bowl or a gong. We can use something like I use brown noise a lot. It's just a nice soothing, it's like white noise, but it's a deeper calming tone. I use also a vibration because it's soothing and it also helps me to become more present, practice mindfulness and presence. We can directly stimulate it. There are some devices that do this. I've never used one. I would like to test one, but I haven't tried one yet. But they say that they are helpful to calm the nervous system. If you stimulate the vagus nerve in a soothing way, it will send soothing and calming signals to your brain and your nervous system and allow it to calm down and relax and go into a parasympathetic state. And the more time you spend in a parasympathetic state, the easier it is to get back there. See, we became anxious, chronically anxious, because we kept experiencing anxiety, kept experiencing sympathetic nervous system. And so our brain learns really well through experience. So the neural pathway of sympathetic nervousness, neural pathway of anxiety got stronger and stronger. But we can do the opposite. We can calm the nervous system through the vagus nerve repeatedly and allow ourselves to experience a calm state again. And the more we do that, the stronger the neural pathway gets for a calm nervous system. There's still some thinking involved in this process. The mindfulness, the getting present is so powerful, but it's so much easier to do when you help yourself out by calming the nervous system first. And then you can start to become present, and then you can start to feel the joy that's around you. You can let go of the anxiousness and the racing thoughts. And that's what I've experienced. That's what I've been experiencing more and more lately, because I've shifted my understanding of what anxiety is and how to approach healing. We're just recalibrating the nervous system. We're retraining the body to feel safe again. And the more we do this, we learn the skill of calming our nervous system ourselves. And then when we get into specific situations where we might have a trauma about something very specific, we've learned how to bring on calming intentionally. And we can start to do that and practice that more and more often. So there you have it. Anxiety is not a thinking problem. It's not a chemical problem. It's a nervous system problem. It's a body problem. But you can communicate with the nervous system through the body. And that simplifies everything. That makes it so much easier. Now you're not fighting it with your mind. You're not trying to reason it away. You're not trying to convince yourself that everything's okay. It's okay. Stop worrying. You don't have to worry. You can just directly communicate with the nervous system and help it learn calm and safety again. This is so powerful, and it has changed my life completely. It changed my trajectory, it changed my understanding. And I know it can change your life too and help you approach anxiety in a holistic way, in a natural way, for natural healing, and allow you to stop fighting yourself and work with your body. So again, this is a process. Healing is not linear. I'm still up and down with this, but I'm experiencing more and more calm as I'm using different techniques to communicate directly with the nervous system instead of trying to fight it with my mind. So that's it. That's the first episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was helpful to you. I do have, I created a guide to kind of show people what I do. Like just kind of the techniques that I'm using to help calm the nervous system. You can get it. I'll put the link in the description, but regardless, I hope that you feel some hopefulness now that you understand what's going on, that you're not really broken. You're just kind of stuck, but you can get unstuck. You can retrain your nervous system. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a beautiful day. I hope that you remember that you are worth loving, worth healing, and you can heal, and you can feel joy again and feel peace. And just remember you're loved. You're loved by me. God loves you. So don't quit. Hang in there. Things will get better. All right. See you next time.